everyone! Welcome to Rika's Reading Room. In today's video, I'm going to read a jolly Christmas book. Enjoy! The Animals' Christmas Carol by Jerry Smath. It was the day before Christmas, and the merry old town was never merrier. Silver bells hung from every shop window. Happy holiday shoppers greeted one another warmly. The smell of Christmas trees and hot cider filled the air. The only one not happy at Christmas time, or at any other time, for that matter, was Ebenezer Scrooge. The grouchy old goat was never known to wish anyone well or put a coin in a beggar's cup. "Christmas? Bah, humbug!" he shouted at the carolers who were singing in front of his office. Ebenezer Scrooge cared for only one thing: money. Although he was rich, Scrooge was too stingy to spend 1 penny more than he had to on fuel, so he kept his office as cold as his own heart. Bob Cratchit, Scrooge's clerk, sat shivering at his desk. He tried to warm his hands by the flame of his candle. Poor Bob worked long hours for very low pay, even on Christmas Eve. The clock on the wall finally struck 7. The workday was over. Bob Cratchit put down his pen, blew out his candle, and walked over to Mr. Scrooge's desk. "Sir," he said timidly, "tomorrow is Christmas Day, and I would like to spend it with my family." Old Scrooge hated the word spend. "Bah! Christmas! It's just an excuse for you to pick my pockets," he snapped. "Take the day off if you must, but be at work extra early the next morning." "Thank you, sir," Bob said happily, "and Merry Christmas." He left quickly before Scrooge could change his mind. Bob Cratchit's sons, Peter and Tiny Tim, were waiting outside for him. Tim could not walk, so Bob hoisted the youngster onto his shoulders. He hurried home, stopping only long enough for a slide on the ice and a peek in the toy shop window. Of all the wonderful toys Tiny Tim saw, there was only one thing he really wanted: a pair of shiny silver skates. "Next year, my legs will be strong, Papa," said Tiny Tim. "Then I'll be able to skate with Peter and my friends." "Perhaps," said his father, brushing a tear from his eye. At home, the three were hugged and welcomed by the rest of the Cratchit family, while old Ebenezer Scrooge went home all alone to his dark, empty house. Later that night, as Scrooge sat in bed counting his piles of money, a strange thing happened. The bedroom window suddenly swung open, and in flew a snowy white bear holding a golden wand. He was dressed all in red, and he wore a bright green holly wreath around his head. Old Scrooge thought he was being robbed. He held tight to the purse around his neck. Who are you?" he asked. "What do you want?" I am the spirit of Christmas, Ebenezer, said the jolly bear, and I am here to help put the joy of Christmas back into your heart. Before Scrooge had a chance to object, the spirit of Christmas took him by the hand and waved his wand. Suddenly, they were flying out their bedroom window and over the town. The look of surprise on Ebenezer's face made the bear laugh. Below them, everyone, both rich and poor, was bustling in and out of the shops, happily calling Merry Christmas to friends and strangers alike. "Look down, Ebenezer," said the spirit. "What do you see?" "I see time and money being wasted," grumbled Scrooge. "Christmas is nothing but a humbug." The bear shook his head. "This job is going to be harder than I thought," he said. The spirit of Christmas reached inside his robe and took out a clock. Its hands were spinning backwards. "We are going back in time to another Christmas," the bear announced. "Close your eyes and hold on tight." Poof! Scrooge opened his eyes and looked down. He saw a laughing little goat pulling a gleaming new sled. "That's me!" he shouted. "And my sister Fan." The bear smiled. "You looked very happy, Ebenezer," he said. "Oh, yes," Scrooge replied. "I really wanted that sled for Christmas. Fan helped me write a letter to Santa. She said I was the best sled puller in town." Moving ahead in time, Scrooge next saw himself as a young clerk, working at his first job. "Isn't that Mr. Fezziwig, your boss?" asked the spirit of Christmas. "Yes," cried Scrooge. "And a kinder soul never lived. Every Christmas, Mr. Fezziwig gave a party. He made everyone stop work and join in the fun." "Those parties must have cost him a pretty penny," said the spirit, shaking his head. "Wasn't that a waste of time and money?" Scrooge didn't answer, but the spirit of Christmas knew he was thinking of his own clerk, Bob Cratchit. The bear waved his wand again, and poof! They returned to the present. Now Scrooge and the spirit stood in front of the Cratchits' humble home. They looked through the wall as if it weren't there. Bob Cratchit and his family were sitting around a small, cozy fire, singing Christmas carols. "They seem so happy," said Scrooge softly. "They are," replied the bear. "No thanks to your stinginess. Bob could use a raise in pay, you know. It's a wonder he can keep food on the table with the pitiful salary you gave him." When the singing was done, Bob lifted his glass in a toast. "A Merry Christmas to all," he said, "and especially to Mr. Scrooge." "And God bless us, everyone," added Tiny Tim in a very tiny voice. Ebenezer Scrooge looked at the sick little boy, and he was truly sorry for the way he had treated Bob and so many others. "Please tell me Christmas isn't over," he begged the spirit. "Before, I thought only of myself, but now I have the Christmas spirit, and I want to share it with everyone." The spirit of Christmas said nothing, but there was a twinkle in his eye. He waved his hand once more, and they were flying home. Scrooge looked down and saw that the shops in town were open and the people were running to and fro with their bundles. "It's still Christmas Eve," he said, pulling at the bear's hand. "Hurry, spirit, I need your help. I've got a lot of shopping to do." Old Scrooge had never felt younger. The spirit of Christmas followed him as he raced from store to store, buying one Christmas gift after another. Scrooge bought a new coat and scarf for Bob Cratchit, a bonnet for Mrs. Cratchit, and mountains of toys for all the Cratchit children. He also bought a special present for his new friend. "Just what I needed," the bear smiled. "But you shouldn't have." Scrooge stopped to shake hands with all the shopkeepers and shoppers, wishing each one a Merry Christmas. He reached into his purse and gave the children shiny new coins. The townspeople stared in surprise and whispered to one another, "Was this really Ebenezer Scrooge?" Quicker than a jingle, the spirit of Christmas brought Ebenezer and his packages safely home. "You no longer need my help," said the bear. "You now have the true meaning of Christmas in your heart. Keep it with you always, where I may visit you again." Then, with one last wave of his wand, the spirit flew off into the snowy night. I will, called Scrooge. "Thank you, spirit, and Merry Christmas." Early the next day, Christmas Day, Ebenezer Scrooge knocked on the Cratchits' front door. "Merry Christmas, Bob," Scrooge said shyly when his clerk opened the door. "And a Happy New Year, too." Bob Cratchit could not believe his eyes or his ears. Merry Christmas, sir," he stammered. "Would you like to join us for Christmas dinner?" "I'd love to," Scrooge said delightedly. It was the most glorious day Scrooge had ever known. There were songs and games and dancing and the most delicious dinner he had ever tasted. But what made Ebenezer happiest of all was the look on Tiny Tim's face when he opened one of his presents and found a pair of shiny silver skates. From that day forward, Scrooge did all he could to help the Cratchits. He became a better boss to Bob, a second father to Tiny Tim, and he found a doctor who made Tim healthy and strong. In return, Scrooge gained a family that loved him for who he was, a gruff old goat with a heart of gold. Good old Ebenezer Scrooge kept Christmas in his heart every day, and he never said, "Bah, humbug," ever again. The end. Thanks so much for listening to my reading. I hope you loved it. Please hit the subscribe button and have a Merry Christmas!